Bonjour, fait que cette semaine, dans la vie de clocharde, je reçois une femme exceptionnelle qui, en fait, son travail, c'est avec des personnes en situation d'itinérance. Fait que on a fait la joke qu'elle deal avec des clochardes. Puis elle a fait beaucoup de choses dans sa vie. Je vous présente Madame Stéphanie Roy.
Bonjour.
How are you today? Like, we're gonna do this in English so that it's easier. It's Montreal, everybody's bilingual, I think.
I speak both, but I speak better English, yeah.
So can you tell us how did you end up working with at the homeless shelter?
Well, it was I guess the reason I decided to go in there is I had a kind of a very busy life, and then I took a psychology in university, and I decided I wanted to do something to kind of atone for some of the things I've done in my past. So in a way, it was a way of helping. That way I could help society instead of, you know,
But
hurt
yeah,
it.
from like what I know, you had an interesting life. So I know that you were at one point in jail. I know at one point you were a stripper. So can you tell us like how did you end up being a stripper?
Um, it's interesting because I came from a very normal family, very normal family, loving family, still, and but I've always been curious about that side of life. I think so.
So
I
you were just
just
like, I wonder what it's like to like rub my ass on old man. So let's just experience this.
exactly. No, it's just because I mean I always felt it was hard to. Maybe because when I was younger, I was a little bit judgy, and I didn't like that about myself. So I thought, okay, why not see what it's like on that side of the fence, you know? And so I did. I became a stripper. I gave myself some rules. I told myself, okay, 3 years. I'll do it only for 3 years. I ended up doing five because
Because it was so much fun.
it actually was. I hate to say
But
it, but I
it's
learned a
really
lot.
rare for people to say that. Like a lot of people, they talk about like the trauma of being a sex worker
Yeah,
and like how they have to overcome that. But like you had a good experience.
yes, I know. For me, it was an amazing experience. I mean, but because of some of my rules that I put on myself too, like one thing I always said, I've never taken a lot of drugs other than shrooms and pot. But then I was like, okay, it's like never ever I'm going to take drugs and never go home with anybody. Don't fall in love, And I never did any of those things. So yeah, that helped. So yeah.
So the reason why I wanted to have you over, like interview you, is because I find like a lot of people that end up wanting to help or work in the social environments, they don't always relate to the people. And I find like from hearing your stories that like, do you see that your coworkers sometimes don't understand
Oh,
the reality of a homeless woman?
totally. I mean, so yeah, I love my coworkers, all of them, but sometimes I find it's like for a lot of them, it's they have the degree and everything to be able to help, but they don't know what it's like to be in that position. And myself, I've been in that position, and then obviously and I get it. Sometimes I find myself getting along better with the residents at the shelter than I do with the actual coworkers,
Yeah, because
because I get
they're homeless.
them.
They're not idiots. There's two different things.
Yeah, I've been homeless, and when I lived in Winnipeg, and so
I talk about that. Like there's a
yeah.
lot of stigma and people think there's a certain type of people that end up being homeless, but I think
Everybody.
it can happen to anyone, like especially with the housing crisis in Montreal, right?
Yes, I've always said it's like homelessness is just a paycheck away for everybody. So don't ever judge because you
So
never
do you
know.
feel like you're making a difference in your work? Like do you
I
feel
think so. I think so. I mean, maybe not immediate results, but I think it's important to make these people feel like they're somebody too, And sometimes I give them more chances than I should, and that's why I do it because the way I say it, people gave me chances when I was in a bad place. And if it wouldn't be for those people that gave me those chances, I probably wouldn't be where I am today.
that's so positive. That's a good
Yeah.
message. I always talk about that. Like if you put out, it takes every person that thinks like you and like me is gonna make the world a better place. Like if people didn't think so negatively.
Exactly.
So do you
Exactly.
feel like you are okay? So what's the weirdest thing that you've had to deal with? Because sometimes I talk about like strippers having to babysit adults. I'm sure you've had like ridiculous
I don't
situation.
know where to start with that. What do you mean, like with stripping? You mean?
No, no, at the shelter. Like
Oh, at the
sometimes is it
shelter.
like
I don't know. That's a really tough one because there's so many incidents. Every night there's an incident, but Yeah, actually, it's really hard to pinpoint right now without getting anyone in trouble.
Okay, so like the last, I wanted to ask you about the jail experience because like I joke a lot about jail and
Yeah.
like what was the hardest thing for you after jail? Like was there a stigma? Did people look at you different?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Jail wasn't even that difficult. I actually had it pretty easy in there.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. But I got along with everybody. It was pretty
How long
cool.
were you in jail for?
Not that long, actually. I was supposed to get, yeah, but I ended up, it was only 4 months.
Okay,
4 months.
nice.
Well, I say only now, but I tell you, it doesn't feel like that when you're there.
Not everybody can do 4 months, yeah.
It's like when you're in there, it's like, oh my God, it feels like 4 years, But then, so now I look back on it, whenever I say, oh, I almost want to flinch when I say, oh, it was only 4 months because it doesn't feel like that in there. The time is different in there.
So that was like a few years ago, right? Like,
Quite a
does
few,
it still
yeah.
have like consequences in your life like now?
Yes, totally. I mean, now it's like, well, not so much anymore, but it's like it took me 5 years. Well, at first it used to be, thanks to our wonderful conservative government. Okay, it used to be before that, it used to be 5 years before you can get a pardon for a criminal record. And right when I was about to get it, somehow they switched it to, and that was right when so and so got into conservatives, and yeah, they switched it to 10 years, 10 freaking years. So all of a sudden, oh, okay, now I gotta. So I remember almost crying about it. I was like, "What? I went to school for nothing?" Because during that time, that was my plan. Okay, I'll get out of jail, go to school for 5 years, boom, and all of a sudden I'll get my degree, get a pardon. But it wasn't that easy. Now so that meant for at least 5 years I had to work dead end jobs, and even though I had a degree in psychology, so it's like. It was hard. It was hard, but I did it.
We relate
so
on
hard
that
not
a
to
lot.
get
We
into
both
it
work
again.
in psychology, psychiatry, but like
Yeah.
yeah, but that's the thing that I find confusing about like the law is that like we're the people who are able to talk to them the most. We can relate and they'll listen. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's thanks to the government.
It's like rehabilitation, my ass. No, it's like they don't rehabilitate anybody. It's like it's all it teaches you is when you get out of jail. It's like, do you know how hard it is to not get into that lifestyle again? Because it's
But
the only way you
that's
make money.
yeah, I know, I know. There's not a lot of outcomes when you come out. Like let's say like when you came out, what's the first thing that you did?
I went to school, went to university.
But did you have like people you could go stay with? Because me,
Oh,
when I was in
yeah,
jail,
and my
I remember
family.
it was a struggle to pay my rent, like to keep my apartment.
I see. I was very lucky. Like I said, like I have an amazing family, and they were there for me. Like they were there for me, and I'm surprised. Like most people are like, ugh, that's it, you're done, But no, it's like no, they were there for me, and they helped me. I lived with my brother. My parents were there to help me out. Like they were, even though that wasn't their cup of tea, but but they still helped me out no matter what. They never judged me. They never said I told you so. Like, yeah, I got very lucky, but. When I was in jail, nobody else was that lucky. Like I saw girls who were scared to come out because they were like in there, at least they got 3 meals a day,
Yeah, but that's the difference between you and me. Like you're white, like me. I didn't tell
Yeah,
my
there's
parents I was in
that.
jail.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
definitely it.
So I wanted to bring up like I think it's pretty cool that you wrote a book about your life. Like, because a lot of people say that my life is so weird. I'm gonna write a book. I'm gonna tell my story, but you actually did it. So I want to show your book. Tu vas-tu bien? And I read it, and it's a very, very real testimony. And I'll let you tell us like what it's about.
Well, the book itself is it's about my sister, but it's about our relationship growing up as sisters. And my sister was sick all her life, and we lived in a very small town in northern Ontario.
What did she have? Like, what was her?
Well, she had like a tracheotomy, so she talked like this.
Okay,
you know. And so we never saw that as a disability because we just were so used to it. We thought that was her, to us that was her normal voice. But that's the one good thing about living in a small town, though. You live in a small town, and everybody knows, so everybody they're used to it.
But
so,
like in the book, like there's a lot of like wild stories. There's a lot of So you guys used to like party together.
All of us, me, my sister, my brother, we were a team,
So
and
did she like? She had the same attitude that you have about life, like
yes,
I'm gonna give it a try. I'm gonna.
Yeah, believe it or not, she was the social animal. She really was.
She wasn't the stripper. You're the stripper.
Yeah, it's true. But it's true. But even then, I was kept to myself. My sister was the social butterfly. She was like always out there,
But it's a really, really good book. Like I think, like I'm gonna put the links to follow you on Facebook, and I
Yeah.
recommend people read that book
Well,
because,
it's on Amazon too, so there's
like, for
that.
people who go through, like, I think being with someone that's sick, there's a lot of books that are like self-help books, and they're like, like so structured, but like
Ugh, it's
somebody that
way,
just
way,
like,
way.
yeah, exactly, somebody that just testifies of like how it is and the realness of the thing. There's not a lot of stories.
Well, my sister was very positive, so
But
we
so are
both
you.
were.
You're like one of the most positive people that I've ever met.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Because me and my sister were both like that. We were always like very, it says, it's like we're here for a good time, not a long time. So yeah, make the most of it, no matter what you do.
But I think that's my point. Like, I think when you talk to the women at the shelter, like, do you ever tell them about like this view that you have? Like, do you try to,
Well, I'm not supposed to, so I don't.
but you don't try
But
to give
I
them
don't
like
tell
life
them.
advices like that?
Unless sometimes a little bit, but very low key, because I don't, it's not good to give advice when they don't know where I've been either. So
But
for them, all it could be
you've been with
is,
someone that was dying. You've been
yeah.
in jail. You were a sex worker. So like, I think that you have a lot that you can talk about that they can relate to.
Well,
No?
yeah, but unfortunately, I'm not supposed to, being at a job like that, you're not supposed to give your private life out.
So you're not allowed to be like, I was once in your situation.
Sometimes I do. Sometimes, depending on the girl.
But you're not supposed
Not
to, right?
supposed to, no.
Wow.
But sometimes, very rarely do I do that. And yeah, very rarely.
Well, I think that like the world is gonna get a better place by having people like you that are gonna, like one step at the time. Like somebody, I'm sure that all of these women, there's one woman that relates to your story like a lot.
Aw, well, thank you.
So do you have any plans, any like anything coming?
Well, yeah, I'm actually working on a movie right now.
Really?
So,
Tell us.
a screenplay. I'm working on the screenplay. And yeah, I'm going to be calling it The Life of a Social Chameleon.
Okay, nice.
Because,
So is it gonna be like your book, like the same kind of?
Where the focus is going to be more on me, I think, other than like this book the focus was mostly on my sister, but both of us and living in a small town. But this one is going to be more based on some of the experiences I've done most of my life.
Okay.
Bad experiences, good experiences, yeah, and how it changed me as a person, and having to adapt to certain situations as a means of survival.
Well, I think that the human nature is to adapt. I think you can learn to live through anything. And do you have any resources that you want to give if somebody's down on their luck, they have nowhere to stay, they don't know?
Well, that's the thing. There's a lot of shelters in the city, and
So how does it go? Like if you want to have to go to a shelter, like what do you do? Like you just show up there?
you can show up there, you can call. This, yeah, either way. But it's unfortunately they're always full. So we need more. We need definitely more resources of that, because it's getting worse and worse and worse.
So
we
how is it
definitely
like
need that.
over there, like the atmosphere? Like is it, or do they have a nice place to stay? Like do they have a bed? Does it
Yeah.
look like jail? Like you've been in jail?
Actually, some of it used to. The whole dorm part kind of what it used to be like a dorm, but they now everyone's got two to a room, So it kind of reminds me of it. And sometimes the women just like, oh, it's like jail in here, because it kind of sometimes it can be with the rules, but which is exactly why I like to sometimes go out of it a bit. But yeah,
But I think
it's a
it
good
takes
place. It's
people
a
like
good place,
you.
and the women actually really. I love the whole community vibe thing. It's a women's shelter I work in, so women are very different from men. I'm not sure what the men's one is like, but women I find are very, well, they can be very catty too, but they can also be very, very. They get along. They support each other.
There's a sisterhood.
Yes,
kind
like
of vibe.
when I was in the shelter, I lived in a shelter in Winnipeg, and I was the same thing. I never dealt with the social workers. I dealt with the other women. That's what helped me.
Do you ever tell the other women that you were also in a shelter?
Yeah, sometimes, most of the time, yeah.
Do you find that it makes a difference?
I think it does, yeah, because I understand where they're coming from. Like me, I would never listen to someone who didn't know. Like when I was in jail, I remember a woman trying to give me advice, and it was good advice, but I didn't want to listen to anything she had to say, because to me, she
Of
was
the way
just,
she talks, like yeah.
yeah, she was,
Real recognizes real, and you're looking kind of unfamiliar right now.
exactly. You know it.
But I really like the work that you do, and not everybody like has like had the life that you had and decided to like help people with it. So I think it's nice. It gives me faith that people like you still exist.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
So I'm gonna put the link for Stéphanie Roy because you have a French name, even though you speak English.
Je parle français aussi, mais mon français s'est cassé un peu parce que c'est vient de Nord-Ontario, ça fait que c'est différent un peu là.
So I'm gonna put the link for your book, and thank you so much for coming and answering my weird questions.
All right, no, that was awesome. Thank you.
All right, thanks.